two of the most powerful warships of their age lie on the floor of the South China Sea off the coast of Malaysia. Together they hold the remains of more than 800 British sailors. They are protected war graves flying the white ensign. For decades, divers who visited returned with the same unease. The wrecks did not look the way they should. Something down there is very wrong, and the reason has nothing to do with rust or the sea. On December 2, 1941, the naval force designated Force Z arrived in Singapore. The squadron, sent by the British War Cabinet to deter Japanese expansion, centered on two massive capital ships. The flagship was HMS Prince of Wales, a newly commissioned King George V-class battleship and one of the Royal Navy's finest. Accompanying her was HMS Repulse, a fast First World War-era battlecruiser. Under the command of Admiral Sir Tom Phillips, these warships were deployed to project British power across the region. Yet the mission carried a fatal vulnerability. The aircraft carrier HMS Indomitable, which was scheduled to provide their essential air umbrella, had run aground during training. Force Z was left to operate entirely without organic air support. Phillips sailed anyway, steering his heavy warships directly into the contested waters of the South China Sea. On December 10, 1941, just 3 days after Pearl Harbor, Force Z met its fate. Off Kuantan, Malaya, waves of Japanese land-based torpedo and level bombers of the 22nd Air Flotilla closed in. No air cover was overhead to protect them. The assault was clinical and relentless. In a coordinated 2-hour blitz, the bombers systematically crippled both vessels. Torpedoes tore open hulls, flooding engineering spaces and destroying steering gears. First, the battlecruiser Repulse succumbed, rolling over and sinking. Minutes later, the modern battleship Prince of Wales listed heavily, capsized, and disappeared beneath the waves. Around 842 men died, including Admiral Sir Tom Phillips. It was the first time in history that capital ships underway and free to maneuver were sunk by air power alone. The era of the battleship was over. On the muddy seabed of the South China Sea, 2 pristine iron tombs fell completely silent. HMS Repulse settled 54 meters down in the South China Sea, while her flagship HMS Prince of Wales came to rest nearby at a depth of 68 meters. Both capital ships lie largely inverted, their massive iron hulls half buried in the seabed mud. Designated as protected places under the United Kingdom's Protection of Military Remains Act 1986, these silent wreck sites became sacred ground. For decades, a strict ethical code existed among the international technical diving community. Look, but never touch. Early visitors reported the steel structures as remarkably intact, cloaked only in marine growth and cold ocean currents. Divers routinely descended to attach brass memorial plaques and secure fresh white ensigns to the ship's propellers, paying quiet tribute to the 842 sailors entombed within. The wrecks were pristine monuments, preserved in the darkness. But this solemn peace would not last. For decades, the silent hulls off Kuantan remained undisturbed, preserved by the cold pressure of the South China Sea. But in the early 2010s, the quiet shifted. Technical divers returning to the graves of HMS Prince of Wales and HMS Repulse began documenting anomalies. The wrecks were changing. Heavy steel plating had disappeared. Jagged gashes marked the iron superstructures, exposing the dark interior spaces beneath. This was not the gradual softening hand of ocean decay. The damage was sharp, localized, and deliberate. Massive structural elements had been severed with mechanical precision, leaving clean cuts that glinted under dive lights. Rumors of illicit activity began circulating through the diving community, but proof required more than anecdotal reports. The Ministry of Defense decided to investigate, launching a high-resolution sonar sweep to map the silent battlefields. In March 2019, the offshore support vessel MMA Pinnacle arrived at the coordinates. Commissioned by the Ministry of Defense, the survey team conducted a comprehensive multi-beam sonar and ROV investigation, later compiled into the Stage 2 Wreck Assessment Report. The data captured at 68 meters on Prince of Wales and 54 meters on Repulse transformed local rumors into measured forensic proof. The sonar mosaics and ROV feeds revealed systematic destruction. In the midships engineering spaces of both capital ships, where heavy steel armor should have protected the engines, the team documented gaping, regular-shaped voids. The openings differed from the jagged tears of the 1941 torpedo impacts or the softening of natural ocean decay. These cuts were clean, straight, and mechanically precise. Salvors had sliced directly through the heavy hull plating to target the valuable non-ferrous metals. The copper-rich condensers, electrical wiring, and brass fittings were completely gone. Even the massive bronze propellers had been sheared from their shafts and lifted. The physical evidence was clear. The official report documented a highly organized commercial operation that left the warships hollowed out, proving that these sacred military tombs were being systematically dismantled. The damage pattern exposed exactly how the salvors operated, but it did not explain who was behind the vessels doing the cutting. The systematic destruction of these warships is driven by a rare metallurgical necessity. Every ton of steel manufactured after the first nuclear detonation on July 16, 1945, is contaminated with trace atmospheric radiation. For ultra-sensitive scientific detectors and medical equipment, modern alloys are useless. Only steel forged before the atomic age remains entirely uncontaminated. This low background steel commands an extraordinary premium, trading at up to $34,000 per ton. Together, the hulls of Prince of Wales and Repulse contain over 40,000 tons of this specialized metal. The financial incentive increases with the non-ferrous machinery. The engineering spaces hold vast quantities of copper, brass, and phosphor bronze, metals that command high scrap values globally. Commercial salvors view these sacred graves as massive, underwater quarries of precious alloy, offering multi-million-dollar payouts to anyone willing to tear them apart. In April 2023, the anonymity of the destruction ended. Satellite tracking and local mariners identified the physical mechanism dismantling the war graves, the Chuanhong 68. A massive Chinese-flagged grab dredger and salvage platform, the vessel did not operate in secret. It anchored directly over the coordinates of HMS Prince of Wales and Repulse, deploying heavy cranes and industrial claws in broad daylight. The salvage crew openly hauled up twisted iron and armored bulkheads from the seabed, debris that once entombed hundreds of British sailors. This was no rogue diving boat. It was an industrial-scale operator with a notorious history. Before targeting Force Zid, Indonesian authorities wanted the Chuanhong 68 for plundering Dutch warships in the Java Sea. In those waters, the sacred graves of the 1942 Battle of the Java Sea have been almost entirely stripped away. The light cruisers De Ruyter and Java, alongside the destroyer Kortenair, have essentially vanished from the mud. Entire steel hulls, once entombing hundreds of sailors, were systematically devoured by industrial claws. The destruction off Malaya fits a proven regional template of profitable industrial grave robbery. The Protection of Military Remains Act. 1986 designates both warships as protected places. But this British law is functionally powerless in the South China Sea. Because the wrecks lie 60 miles off the coast, within the Malaysian exclusive economic zone, they rest outside United Kingdom territorial waters. British courts hold zero jurisdiction over foreign-flagged vessels operating in these seas. This jurisdictional vacuum ensures that foreign salvage operators face no risk of prosecution from London. On paper, these hulls are sovereign war graves. In reality, they remain exposed to commercial plunder with near total impunity. With every steel plate dragged to the surface, a grave is erased. As international law fails, the final berth of 800 sailors is reduced to commercial scrap. Greed is rewriting history, one wreck at a time. If you support maritime preservation, please subscribe.